So therefore, why don't we consult somebody who has spent his professional life considering human behavior, considering why we do the things we do, and more to the point, don't do certain things? That is a professor of psychology, you'd be glad to know, is our next speaker. Please let me introduce you to, from NTNU, Christian Klöckner. Christian.
Yes, thank you for the possibility to speak here and to break it down to you and me and everyone around us, and even people not here and people that we sometimes ignore when we talk about the big issues that we talk about today. So the first question I want to address is, we've talked about the consumer. I would rather like to talk about the citizen than the consumer, because the consumer role is just one of the many roles that we play as citizens. So what do we do in an energy system, and what do we even do in a larger system? So we are, as citizens, we are using energy directly and indirectly embedded in products we buy, but also in direct to create services that we want. And then we are now producing energy. More and more people around us have invested in their private production of electricity and maybe other energy-producing activities. We are investing money. We are investing money into some activities, some investments that are recreating the fossil society, but we are also investing in other types of things. We are investing in technology, and sometimes we are investing in services and ideas. We are adopting technology, we are adopting smart technology, we are adopting digital tools, and that impacts how our lives look like. But not the least, we are also citizens, we are voters, we heard that before, we have that role, and as such, we impact the way that our societies are built. And we are mobile, we move around. I've been challenged by the interview that you had in the paper, Charlie, about traveling here. And as someone based in Trondheim in Norway, I fly awfully much around in Europe to participate in all those talks about climate change, which is kind of ironic, I have to say. And then we lobby for our part, our share of the cake, our world, and we want to keep that. And sometimes we want to change that. So I'm not able to go into details about the psychology of consumption and the psychology of energy use in a 10-minute talk, but I can give you an idea about the way I think and about the way we in our research group think. So as you can see here on this, in this onion-like model, we conceive of behavior as a mixture of different influences. So what people do, what kind of behavioral patterns they have, is influenced both by something within the individual. People have attitudes, people have values, people have developed certain habits over time, people have some intentions to change or not change their behavior, but this is only one part of the explanation. Because what we also are as humans is that we are social animals. We do what people around us do. We seek that other people approve of what we do. So we try to fit into social systems. We try to fit into social groups, and we follow social norms and cultures in what we do. And then we have this material, technological world around us that we heard this morning might save us. I would challenge that notion and say that, well, it might contribute to the solution, but it will certainly not be enough to have good new technology to change the issues we are confronted with. And then we have this layer around all that, which is policy and regulations, and they shape, of course, how people behave, but they are also formed by people themselves. So I can just give you some examples of what we found in our research impacts people's decisions. And you might be surprised or not surprised that this is more than economic considerations. So what does impact people's decisions? Of course, what people want to do has an impact on what they do. If you can get people to intend to change your behavior, you have achieved a little bit. But you're not there yet, because there's a lot more other things around them. Their values and norms, there is this cultural system that stabilizes the way we do, the way we live, and there is the larger culture around us and subcultures, their habits and routines, and this is extremely important for all the small things we do in life. Without those, we wouldn't be able to function well in our daily lives, but they also lock us into established patterns of behavior. We have the social impact, the social pressure, what others do, what others expect from us, or even what we think others expect from us. It's not always what they really expect from us. We have this emotional connection to things, and one of the big issues with climate change is that so far it has lacked to create an emotional reaction in many people. We talk about it in very abstract terms. We have seen a lot of fancy figures and graphs developing, but how does that feel? What does that mean to a single individual? Not so much, I fear. So we have also perceived difficulty of behaviors, something that we think is easy to do, we are more likely to do. We go for the low-hanging fruits, whereas we probably should do the more difficult things. There are, of course, economic factors. I'm not debating that. So whenever I talk to Asgeir, I say, you have a point there, but it's not the only one. And there is an issue of trust when we talk about technologies, when we talk about data. Who's using that? Can I trust the other part? We've talked about trust in political incentive systems and so on. So that plays a role in how people behave, and then beliefs about how the world works. So how do people think about the climate system works? How do they think about their individual contribution to that? Is it important what I do here? Is it important what Norwegians do? And so on. So all those beliefs play a role. And then there is technology acceptance, and all of that. So to move further on into what I think is really important, I would like to ask the question, then how do we really get action? Because when I think as a scientist about that we have now a little bit more than 10 years to reach 2030. And 10 years in terms of a scientist is basically one big research program or two smaller research programs. And within them, we have to have achieved a change. It's not about creating more knowledge. If by 2030 we have the knowledge but have not implemented the knowledge, we are too late. So what I would like to argue for is that also in the science system, we need to get away from projects that create knowledge to projects that actually create impact. And there we need to have people with us that can create the impact, and that means citizens, that means other stakeholders, and that means also moving away from a way of doing science which is not involving in the processes, but rather maybe to a way of science that means we evaluate things on the go and we contribute with our knowledge that we have to how to create this change. So what do we know? Well, we did an interesting analysis of policy documents in a project. And in those policy documents, we found that there are two main assumptions about the consumer. They didn't call them citizens, they called them consumers. One is consumers act if they have the real economic incentives. Well, second thing is, well, they don't act because they don't know. So we need to inform them. So the main policies that EU, member states, and even regions implement are create economic incentives and educate people. Well, we have been doing that for quite some time. We have had some response to that, but we haven't reached the target of a societal transition. So there's more than those two assumptions. And we have a toolbox within psychology, within social science, but we have focused a lot lately on slowly pushing people into the right direction, creating environments for them to make the right decisions without even noticing. So we have focused on not disturbing the public. That's dangerous. If you disturb the public, they might riot. They might vote Brexit. They might do something really, really strange. So there is a strong resonance of such slow measures to impact people. But what I would like to see more, thank you for introducing disruptive innovations, I would like to see more disruptive communications and disruptive interventions. And coming back to the start of this morning, what Greta does is exactly that. She does something that you don't expect. She started as one single person, one young woman, and she mobilized a huge movement of young people that also get support from other people around the world. We've also looked at how artwork, how storytelling can be such disruptive communications, and I'm looking forward to go more into detail in the discussion later on because my time is running out. Thank you for listening.
That was a great introduction. Disruptive interventions. He's left us with that thought. What do we mean by that? Ask him to put flesh on those bones. I'd like to.